Welcome to TV News. Angela Rayner's resignation triggers a labor purge. Panicking Starmer axes cabinet ministers in bloody Phase 3 reshuffle after she quit for failing to pay tax. Keir Starmer kicked off another desperate reshuffle today after Angela Rayner was finally forced to quit over her tax affairs. The PM is taking a knife to his team, just days after he tried to launch a Labour Phase 2, following a torrid summer and consistently dire polls. Sir Keir has been left scrambling to stabilize his government following the departure of Ms. Rayner from her posts of Deputy PM, Housing Secretary and Deputy Labour Leader. Standards watchdog Sir Laurie Magnus concluded that Ms. Rayner had tried to act with integrity but still fell short of the standards required in government, failing to pay tens of thousands of pounds of stamp duty. In a letter to Sir Keir, Ms. Rayner stressed the strain that the furor had put on her family. She said she deeply regretted not having sought expert tax advice, even though she had received an explicit recommendation to do so. Downing Street released a handwritten response from the Premier saying he was sad about the circumstances because Ms. Rayner has given her all, but it was the right decision. Commons leader Lucy Powell and Scotland Secretary Ian Murray are early casualties of the latest overhaul, with more big beasts believed to be at risk. That is despite aides previously suggesting there would only be a limited reshuffle for the lower ranks this month. Ms. Rayner's departure as Deputy Labour Leader, a separate elected post, triggers what could be a deeply divisive contest. Cabinet ministers, who had frantically rallied round Ms. Rayner in recent days and even suggested she was being persecuted for working-class roots, heaped praise on her. Ed Miliband described her as one of the great political figures of our time, as an apparent operation to save her career from total ruin kicked off. However, Kemi Badenoch said Ms. Rayner's position had been untenable for days and Sir Keir should have had the backbone to sack her before. Nigel Farage brought forward his Reform Conference speech in Birmingham to respond to the developments, condemning the sense of entitlement at the top of Labour. Confirming she had been ousted from government, Ms. Powell said it had been an honour to serve and pointed to the difficult period for Labour. Mr. Murray said he was disappointed to leave the Scotland brief, complaining about the dreadful legacy from the Tories. Sir Laurie said in his report, given the conjunction of the acknowledged complexity of her family's circumstances, her position in government, most importantly as Deputy Prime Minister, and the consequences of getting such a calculation wrong, it is deeply regrettable that the specific tax advice was not sought. I believe Ms. Rayner has acted with integrity and with a dedicated and exemplary commitment to public service. I consider, however, that her unfortunate failure to settle her SDLT liability at the correct level, coupled with the fact that this was established only following intensive public scrutiny, leads me to advise you that, in relation to this matter, she cannot be considered to have met the highest possible standards of proper conduct as envisaged by the Code. Accordingly, it is with deep regret that I must advise you that in these circumstances, I consider the Code to have been breached. Sir Laurie said she believed that she relied on the legal advice she had received, but unfortunately did not heed the caution contained within it, which acknowledged that it did not constitute expert tax advice, and which suggested that expert advice be sought. I am conscious of the acute challenges ministers face, perhaps uniquely, in managing the demands of their personal lives and their public responsibilities. However, the responsibility of any taxpayer for reporting their tax returns and settling their liabilities rests ultimately with themselves. As well as having to pay the extra £40,000 in stamp duty, tax experts have warned that Ms. Rayner is likely to face a penalty of up to 30% of the sum for her blunder. She wrote in her resignation letter to the PM, I deeply regret my decision to not seek additional specialist tax advice, given both my position as Housing Secretary and my complex family arrangements. I take full responsibility for this error. I would like to take this opportunity to repeat that it was never my intention to do anything other than pay the right amount. I must also consider the significant toll that the ongoing pressure of the media is taking on my family. While I rightly expect proper scrutiny on me and my life, my family did not choose to have their private lives interrogated and exposed so publicly. I have been clear throughout this process that my priority has, and always will be, protecting my children, and the strain I am putting them under through staying in post has become unbearable. Given the findings and the impact on my family, I have therefore decided to resign as Deputy Prime Minister and Secretary of State for Housing, Communities and Local Government, as well as Deputy Leader of the Labour Party. In his reply, Sir Keir said, "Although I believe you have reached the right decision, it is a decision which I know is very painful for you. You have given your all to making the Labour government a success, and you have been a central part of our plan to make Britain fairer for working families. On a personal note, I am very sad to be losing you from the government. You have been a trusted colleague and a true friend for many years. I have nothing but admiration for you and huge respect for your achievements in politics. I know that many people of all political persuasions admire that someone as talented as you is the living embodiment of social mobility." Ms. Rayner's prospects had looked increasingly bleak after Sir Keir refused to rule out sacking her yesterday, insisting he would act on the findings from Sir Laurie. Furious lawyers broke cover to accuse Ms. Rayner of trying to make them scapegoats for her underpaying stamp duty. Bizarrely, even as Ms. Rayner's demise emerged this morning, the PM's official spokesman was still insisting Sir Keir had full confidence in her. Confirming that Sir Keir had received the report from Sir Laurie, the spokesman said, "The Prime Minister will read it and act upon it. He has a reputation for being comprehensive and quick." Ms. Rayner gave a tearful interview on Wednesday, in which she laid the blame for her troubles on her lawyers. The row escalated again last night after high street conveyancing firm Verico and Associates insisted they had acted on the figures and the information provided by Ms. Rayner. In a withering condemnation, the family firm's 82-year-old managing director Joanna Verico said they were being made scapegoats and added, "I have got the arrow stuck in my back to show it." After days of stonewalling, Ms. Rayner, 45, belatedly admitted underpaying £40,000 of stamp duty on the £800,000 seaside flat she bought in Hove in May. She should have paid £70,000 instead of £30,000, but she blamed the mistake on legal advice that I received that said that I was liable to pay the standard stamp duty. Asked on Sky News this morning whether ministers should resign if they breach the rules, Trade Minister Douglas Alexander said, "All these matters are a matter for the Prime Minister." Challenged whether he trusted Ms. Rayner, the minister told Times Radio, "Listen, I really want to live in a country in which someone with Angela Rayner's circumstances and background can rise to one of the highest offices in the country. I have to say I should declare an interest. I really like Angela Rayner. We're a rather improbable group of friends. We come from very different circumstances. If you look at the challenges that Angela Rayner has overcome, not only do I like and respect her, but, yes, I think she's in politics for the right reasons." Last night, her version of events was dealt a serious blow by Verico and Associates, based in Herne Bay, Kent, which issued a bombshell statement saying it had calculated the stamp duty strictly based on the facts and information provided to us, and that it did not offer tax advice. Mrs. Verico, who founded the practice in 1994 assisted by her 3 daughters, later told The Telegraph, "We acted for Ms. Rayner when she purchased the flat in Hove. We did not and never have given tax or trust advice. It's something we always refer our clients to an accountant or tax expert for." The stamp duty for the Hove flat was calculated using HMRC's own online calculator based on the figures and the information provided by Ms. Rayner. That's what we used, and it told us we had to pay £30,000 based on the information provided to us. We believe that we did everything correctly and in good faith. Everything was exactly as it should be. We probably are being made scapegoats for all this, and I have got the arrow stuck in my back to show it. We are not an inexperienced firm, but we're not qualified to give advice on trust and tax matters, and we advise clients to seek expert advice on these. Ms. Rayner argued that she received at least 3 pieces of legal advice, including from the trust overseeing her disabled son's affairs, as well as from a conveyancer supporting her initial position. But Sir Laurie made clear that none of that advice constituted expert tax advice, and indeed one opinion recommended that she should get some. MFG Solicitors of Kidderminster, which was involved in conveyancing at her family home in Ashton-under-Lyne, said it did not act for Ms. Rayner in the purchase of her property in Hove, nor did we provide any tax-related advice in relation to it. And law firm Shoesmiths, which previously acted for her, also ruled itself out. As the mystery grew over her flat purchase last week, Ms. Rayner sought advice from a tax barrister, who told her this week that she had been wrong not to pay the higher amount of stamp duty, prompting her mea culpa on Wednesday. Ms. Badenoch said Ms. Rayner's position was untenable for days after the Deputy Prime Minister admitted she underpaid stamp duty on a flat she bought in Hove earlier this year. In a video posted on X, Ms. Badenoch said, "Angela Rayner is finally gone. It says everything about Keir Starmer's weak leadership that he had to wait for a report before acting. The truth is simple," she dodged tax. She lied about it. Her position was untenable for days. Keir Starmer once promised honesty and integrity in politics, but when faced with this test, he hesitated. No principles, no backbone. We Conservatives forced this investigation and were vindicated. But this isn't the end. Questions remain. What did Keir Starmer know, and when did he mislead the public? Last night, Dan Neidl, a tax expert who has advised the Labour Party, tweeted, "It's looking increasingly like Ms. Rayner didn't actually obtain tax advice before this week." Verico is a small conveyancing firm that does not employ any qualified solicitors. Instead, they are licensed conveyancers who only focus on property advice. The barrister who gave Ms. Rayner the later advice is reported to have been Jonathan Peacock, a tax specialist who has been a KC for nearly 25 years. It is understood she commissioned him last Friday and received a draft opinion on Monday, the day the Prime Minister was still insisting she had done nothing wrong. That's all for now on TV News. We'll continue to follow these stories and bring you updates as they happen. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay informed. Thanks for watching.